Hey, I usually don't make videos like this, but today we're doing something a little different. A response video specifically to Under the Mayo. You know, the guy who's known for his bad takes and also happened to make this video calling Arkham Knight a terrible game? Well, after he posted this, it wasn't exactly received too well by the Arkham community. Tons of comments calling him out, dozens of response videos made from the likes of Colin and some smaller YouTubers, and so on and so forth. Well, now Under the Mayo has released a second video about Arkham Knight, but not to accept any of the arguments made against him, no. Rather just to reinforce his original awful takes on the game and why he is objectively correct. Spoiler, he's not, and we're going to be debunking that entire video today. Real quick, I want to say right now that I do get more hostile than usual at points in this video, so just to clear things up now, I have nothing against Under the Mayo, and I don't have any problem with him or anybody having a negative opinion on the game. Rather, I'm simply debunking the awful takes he's made against Arkham Knight since he is flat out wrong on a lot of the things he says, and the fact that he doubled down on those incorrect things makes it that much worse. I'm not encouraging anybody to harass him, I just think he completely misrepresented the game, so I'm gonna defend it. So, skipping through his intro filled with him saying Arkham Knight is one of the worst games, claiming that his video isn't that much of an analysis even though it is and we will be treating it as such, and the sarcastic comments aimed at those who disagree with him, we're finally ready to start the video.
Number 1, I have heard everyone saying that the car doesn't actually take up a lot of the game. People are throwing all kinds of percentages at me, when the fact is, the first third of the game is stuffed with tank combat. It doesn't matter to me if it evens out later, the amount of car stuff is so ridiculous early on that it soured me on the entire experience.
Yeah, he's just straight up wrong about this. The percentage of Batmobile usage throughout the entire game that he's talking about here was calculated by That Boy Aqua to be about 19%, and if you include all of the DLC, you're only actually using the Batmobile for around 16% of the time throughout Arkham Knight. Now, while Under the Mayo's argument would make sense if there was an overabundance of Batmobile in the first third of the game like he claimed, then yeah, it'd be fine. Except there's really not. A casual playthrough of Arkham Knight usually takes around 8 hours to beat the main story, so for the first third of the game, 2 hours and 40 minutes to be precise, I went ahead and timed how long Batman was actually using the Batmobile for. This includes tank fights, driving segments, and yes, even times where Batman isn't actually inside the Batmobile, but rather using the remote control. Quick note, I played very casually, not skipping any dialogue, not racing through as fast as possible like I usually do, in order to get a more accurate result. Plus, I also did tend to switch between on-foot traversal and Batmobile driving whenever I had the choice between the two, so that it was fairly evened out. Just thought I should mention that. With that said, my total time was around 35 minutes of Batmobile usage in that 2 hour and 40 minute time frame, or just under 22% of the time. So while it is slightly more than the overall 19% usage rate excluding DLC, the first third of the game is still not nearly as much Batmobile as Under the Mayo is making it out to be. Not to mention that I stopped the time right before going into a fairly large segment of the game that basically doesn't involve the Batmobile at all. Now, while I will agree that the Batmobile was overused in Arkham Knight, I'm not denying that, Mayo completely blows this out of proportion, and the 30 minutes of Batmobile contained within the first third of the game doesn't ruin the entire experience moving forward.
Number 2, I am well aware that the enemy tanks do not have drivers inside and are instead driven remotely, sneaking around Cobra tanks driven by morons that can't hear the Batmobile running over things behind them, but that has nothing to do with my comment about morons that can't hear behind them. That's just a simple, reductive way of stating how dumb the whole section is, because even if they are driven remotely, that means these futuristic war tanks have no microphones to monitor their surroundings, no cameras behind them or even to their sides, and no sensors behind them, which normal consumer trucks and shipping trucks have had forever. Or they do have all those things and the remote drivers still don't notice. It feels like you're fighting morons.
This is not a problem with Arkham Knight. This is the case with almost all gameplay systems across nearly every single video game. Sometimes you have to suspend belief in realism so that it doesn't come at a cost of gameplay. The other Arkham games that you claim to enjoy do this all the time as well. For example, in Batman Arkham Asylum, why do all the thugs attack one by one instead of all just jumping Batman at the same time? Or how about why do they all just sit around and wait for Batman to finish an attack instead of hitting him while he's distracted? Does that make make them complete and utter morons and mean that all of the combat sections are stupid? Obviously no. Gameplay sections are designed in a certain way to prioritize engagement over realism, but that doesn't make said gameplay sections dumb. If every enemy was realistic in Arkham Asylum, free flow combat would be next to impossible and wouldn't be nearly as satisfying, right? Same goes for Arkham Knight. In universe, I would certainly say that it would make more sense if these tanks were manned so that Batman can't destroy them without breaking his no-kill rule, or at the very least have some sort of sensor detection all around the tank like you said. But from a pure gameplay perspective, this doesn't make sense at all for what Rocksteady was trying to do with these sections, and there's absolutely nothing more to it than that.
Number 4, I do not finish games I'm having a terrible time with after hours of playing them and enjoying almost nothing about them. I listened to people's criticism before about me sometimes not finishing games I don't like, and I forced myself to finish Deathloop in 2021 to prove the haters wrong. I regret it to this day because the game was shit all the way to the end and only got worse. I'll never repeat that mistake. Game sucks, I quit.
Alright guys, so as you can see, we're about a third of the way through Under the Mail's video, and I know I'm trying to analyze his takes and make a full, well thought out response, and I really should watch the whole thing to gain his entire perspective, but honestly, I think I'm gonna call it quits here because I'm just not really enjoying the video all that much, and there was this one time years ago when I kept watching a video I didn't really like. It was traumatizing. So yeah, thanks for watching. This cannot be serious, like what? You don't like the game? Fine. I have nothing against putting something down that you don't enjoy and moving on. I've done this with games before too. But you didn't just move on. You decided to make an entire analysis video on a game having only actually played a portion of it. That's like reading half a book and writing a report, watching 30 minutes of a movie and making a review, or watching a third of a video and making a response to it. You haven't even gone through the whole experience, much less the main campaign, and stop hiding behind, oh, I did this once with a game and it was awful. That's just stupid. Game reviewers struggle through games that they don't like all the time because they know they need to see the full picture before pushing their own judgments out into the world for thousands to see. Again, if you simply don't enjoy the game and want to put it down, that's fine, but if you want to profit off of all that juicy YouTube ad revenue not once, but twice, at least put the work in to actually finish what your video is all about so you can do the topic justice.
Number 5, regarding my comment that the combat felt a lot easier compared to Arkham City. People have pointed out that I'm simply better at the combat after having played the first 2 games, so it feels easier when it's actually the same. And okay, that's a fair point. That most certainly is a factor. But I also felt like I got swarmed by thugs on the street pretty early in Arkham City if I went around picking fights. And the early campaign missions threw bigger, more challenging fights at me. Arkham Knight didn't feel like that. But hey, if I'm wrong on that one, fine. Hell, even getting footage for this video, I was shocked at how much more demanding the opening fight with Catwoman is in Arkham City compared to the early action I came across in Arkham Knight. Even the first fight I picked in the streets had me feeling under pressure. Knight street fights just didn't have that in my experience, speaking as a casual fan.
Okay, I'm genuinely not sure if he's purposely struggling against Arkham City's basic thugs to try and prove this point, but sure, Arkham Knight has easier combat at first and takes slightly longer to get into the more difficult sections. You wanna know why? Because the game is much longer than Arkham City. Arkham Knight may have a lower bar set for difficulty at first, but that's so as you progress through the game, it can continually get more and more difficult without reaching the point of impossibility. You know, game progression. I would say that Arkham Knight's combat and street fights do start off slightly easier than Arkham City simply because the basic thugs didn't receive any kind of buff to match Batman's more in-depth and versatile moveset, but as new enemy types are introduced like medics, electric charged enemies, and brutes, that argument completely goes away. By endgame, you're fighting ninjas, weapon expert brutes, medics, and a bunch of regular enemies all at the same time, and this is where Arkham Knight becomes much harder than any of the combat encounters that Arkham City throws at you. I mean, just ask any Batman Arkham veteran or speedrunner if Arkham City or Arkham Knight has harder combat overall. Every single one will say Arkham Knight. Make no mistake though, you are also severely blowing the early game difficulty comparison completely out of the water between these two games. It is not a difference of, oh, Arkham Knight is mind-numbingly easy to start off, whereas Arkham City is brutally challenging right from the get-go. No, both games still have you only fighting nothing more than handfuls of basic thugs to start off, with maybe 1 or 2 mini-bosses thrown in. The only difference is that Batman is just better equipped to deal with these guys size early game. Much like the rest of the combat, street fights in Arkham Knight may start out easier than Arkham City's, but once you progress enough, it'll get to the point where you'll find groups of armed militia patrolling the roads, tons of enemy cars that will attempt to run you over, and checkpoints set up all over the map, whereas Arkham City's street fights never really evolve into anything beyond those basic combat encounters. Plus, I still fail to see why one game being easier to start off is a bad thing that needs to be criticized.
Number 6. The ability to get the electric gun early on is completely irrelevant to my point about gadget integration and level progression. Arkham City from a very early point had me using gadgets to progress. The electric gun had to be used to open doors. You have to use the grapple to cross the water to get to Penguin. These things happen quite early in the campaign and encourage familiarity with your gear as you're learning how the game plays. In contrast to this, in Arkham Knight, I have made it a third through the game's progression doing campaign and side missions, and it's done a far inferior job of getting me into gadget variety. Level progression seems to be all about the car, and I don't care that there may be gadget integration later on. Too late. The game has already lost me by being 50% tank combat and constant cutscenes for the opening hours.
Yeah, I don't even know what to say to this one. Puzzles and gadget integration are some of the most prominent aspects of Arkham Knight, to the point where there's at least some degree of it in nearly every mission you come across. When you're on foot, again 80% of the game, you better believe you'll have to use your gadgets to get through a blocked off area, to turn on a generator, or to get across what would be a deadly fall. Arkham Knight has almost every important mission of the game dedicated to becoming familiar with a specific gadget and all of its uses, like Stag airships for the remote hacking device, the voice synthesizer for the movie studios, or the rec gun for the Arkham Knight HQ. Does the Batmobile have a good amount of this integration within the first third of the game? Yes, because the Arkham games tend to teach you about new gadgets right after unlocking it, and the Batmobile, technically a gadget, is unlocked extremely early on. To act like it's the sole form of gadget integration within the first third of Arkham Knight's story though is absolutely absurd. The Batarang has multiple sections teaching you how you can use it to down thugs, knock out charging enemies, and even distract armed guards. Explosive gel is taught throughout the Ace Chemicals section, even allowing you to utilize your newfound knowledge in the very next Predator sequence, and the line launcher and remote control Batarang are both essential parts to sneaking around the underground militia base. In case you couldn't have guessed, that is almost every gadget that Batman starts out with having a dedicated section within the first third of the game. Every time you unlock a new gadget from now on, that gadget also receives a dedicated teaching section, and then it's integrated frequently throughout the remaining parts of the game. Arkham City did this exact same thing. Rec gun to get through the steel mill, Batclaw for Penguin's museum, line launcher for tracking down the League of Assassins, you get the idea. Just because some of the gadget integration involves the Batmobile doesn't mean that the rest of the gadgets aren't used at all, because they are, very frequently at that, throughout the main campaign, side missions, collectibles, and everything else.
Number 7. Calling Arkham Knight a bad game is not something I think anyone should take personally. I'm not gonna get into arguments about objectivity versus subjectivity. People can like what they like. But I'm not calling anyone stupid for liking what I think is a bad entry in the Arkham series. I think we all like bad games here and there. Hell, even Redfall has a fan base, and they call you dishonest and a click chaser for calling it bad. I like some bad games too, it's okay, and I'll defend things I think are good about them while still agreeing it's overall bad.
Here's the problem. He says he doesn't want to get into objectivity versus subjectivity, but then almost immediately after starts talking about how Arkham Knight is objectively a bad game, not only contradicting himself, but also making this pretty ironic considering that he's done almost nothing to prove that throughout this entire video.
I'm not gonna get into arguments about objectivity versus subjectivity.
2 seconds later.
I think we all like bad games here and there. I like some bad games too, it's okay.
Get a load of this guy.
I'm confused, the audience is confused, I think Under the Mayo even managed to confuse himself with this one. Also, in case you missed it,
but I'm not calling anyone stupid for liking what I think is a bad entry in the Arkham series.
I'm sorry, you cannot try to take some moral superiority after rage baiting and attempting to troll by doing things like purposely misspelling the game's name in your title, as well as constantly making sarcastic remarks aimed at those who disagree with you. You have zero moral high ground here.
Many have attempted to convince me that the part where Batman suits up in Arkham Knight is just the same as his suit up moment in City, and it's just not.
Nobody said they were exactly the same, but they're pretty much shot for shot the same suit up.
First, they're contextually different. Cities is about Bruce Wayne becoming Batman. Knights is about Batman getting a bunch of upgrades to make himself more badass.
Again, nobody said they were exactly the same, but how does Bruce suiting up for the first time versus Bruce getting a new suit make either one more overindulging than the other?
Second, in City, he just puts on the suit and moves on to the objective. In Night, the game pauses to dwell and indulge on every single suit upgrade as if this stuff were important to see.
It is.
It's just there for fanboys to squeal and scream about how badass Batman's gear is.
The game is literally telling players what upgrades the new suit unlocks. Don't you think it's just a little important to inform players about extra grapple boosts, throw counters, and fear takedowns? I'd imagine if they just gave all these moveset upgrades to you without saying a word, that'd be a lot worse.
Third, while City simply moves on to the mission, Night presents you with the option to do a bunch of VR missions to explore your cool new tech while hostages are waiting for you to rescue them. I think it's immersion breaking, and the problem is not resolved by it being optional. Just the existence of VR missions in this exact moment is distracting from how serious the experience feels at this point.
Well, first off, considering that this section is literally the stealth tutorial, having extra optional teaching moments for players who still aren't confident in Predator is honestly a really good idea. Second, he's wrong again. Arkham City doesn't just continue on with the objective, you're actually given the option to free roam all around the map, go inside random areas, and start side missions, all before ever heading to the courthouse. That means I could make this exact same argument against Arkham City. Please, try to spot the difference between these two statements.
Night presents you with the option to do a bunch of VR missions to explore your cool new tech while hostages are waiting for you to rescue them. I think it's immersion breaking, and the problem is not resolved by it being optional.
City presents you with the option to go wherever you want to explore the cool new open world while Catwoman is waiting for you to rescue her. I think it's immersion breaking, and the problem is not resolved by it being optional. See what I mean?
And for those who have to compare everything to Doom and insist this overindulgent masturbatory scene is just like Doom Eternal's celebration of Doom Guy's awesomeness, you might have a point if the tone of the Arkham series were anything like the Doom series. The first Doom has a blood-soaked Doom Guy holding the decapitated head of his pet rabbit killed by demons. It's always been silly and over the top. Not every single entry, Doom 3 is dark, but the series started pretty silly. Doom 2016 has silly stuff in it, and Doom Eternal takes it further. The Arkham games present themselves seriously, especially the very dark tone Arkham Knight. And this gross, oh yeah, Batman is so awesome, look at all his sweet gear, just doesn't belong here, in my opinion.
How dare Batman have a cool suit-up scene in a serious game? It's not like every other superhero video game ever made does this too. Oh wait.
And look, all the proof you need to see that this sequence in Arkham Knight is bizarrely overindulgent and off-putting to someone who doesn't touch themselves to Batman, is to look at the duration of these two sequences, timing it from the moment they open the capsule to suit up to the moment when the player finally takes control. It takes Arkham City's sequence only 36 seconds to reach the end. Want to guess how long it takes Arkham Knight to suit up and get through all the gushing over his gear? Close to 2 minutes, 1 minute and 42 seconds. Case closed.
Something that you conveniently left out is that the actual suit-up scene itself in Arkham Knight is only 48 seconds long. Yeah, just 12 seconds longer than Arkham City's suit-up scene. The rest of the time is dedicated to informing you about upgrades, which I already explained why that's important, but if it's really that hard for you to sit through less than a minute of dialogue, you can literally just skip the entire thing instantly and move on. It's not that big of a deal. Worst case scenario, this suit-up is just a little over the top in comparison to City's suit-up, which doesn't mean it's super overindulgent or some massive problem like you make it out to be. My point of this video is not to hate on Under the Mayo or claim that Batman Arkham Knight is a flawless masterpiece. I love the game, and I hold it near and dear to my heart, but I can still recognize its problems, such as Deathstroke and Hush having super underwhelming side missions after their build-ups, some of the writing being very confusing and going in a lot of different directions, and of course, the one thing I can semi-agree with Mayo, the overuse of the Batmobile. I'm also not trying to attack him for having a negative opinion on a game that I like, that's just stupid. Rather, I have a problem with him making an incomplete analysis, generally just misrepresenting the game by stating things as fact that are actually completely wrong, and attempting to troll and insult an entire community of fans just because they don't necessarily agree with him. I'm not saying that if he stuck it out and made it to the end of the game, he'd automatically have some coming to Jesus moment that completely changed his perspective, but maybe he'd realize that the Batmobile isn't as overused as he thought it was, maybe he'd find that gadget integration is still very much a key aspect to Arkham Knight, and maybe, just maybe, he'd also get the difficulty increase that he so badly wanted from the get-go. Anyways, I'm not encouraging anyone to go harass Under the Mayo. He's apparently done talking about the game, so let's leave it that way. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.